All right, welcome to Driftwood Guitars. My name is Chris. Behind the camera is Matt, as always. Today, on a 3,000-year-old guitar, we're going to do the kerfing on this thing. As you remember, in the last episode, we did the arm bevel. So before we can do the radius thing on this, and by that I mean sanding in the 30-foot radius on the top and the 15-foot radius on the back, we need to put the kerfing in. Traditionally, what you would use is kerfing that you would buy either from StewMac, LMI. For years, I actually bought my kerfing from Advanced Shell Technology, which was their like A4 advanced kerfing. Super cool stuff. But if we go back to what I've been talking about from the very beginning, remember the episode where we talked about the magnets vibrating? We need to make these sides as stiff as possible. So they're obviously already ridiculously strong, and by putting that piece of bevel inside there, it's even stronger. But one last thing that we can do to really take this over the top is to put solid kerfing in it instead of the bendy kerfing. It's a little bit more work, but even if you're not laminating your sides, I would say one thing you can really do that will increase the stiffness of your sides would just be use solid kerfing. So all we got to do is make these on the drum sander. You can do these with a hand plane. In my particular case, these are 2.5 millimeters thick, or 1/1000th or a 1/10 of an inch thick, by 12 millimeters tall, which is about a 1/2 inch. So you can just make your own to your own specifications, whatever you want. You don't want to make them too thick because then you can't bend them. That's the only consideration you want to do. Making mine out of Spanish Cedar, it bends really easily. I've tried to do these out of mahogany, and they tend to want to kind of bend in like tiny straight lines. So this is what's worked really well. So I just buy one giant piece of Spanish Cedar and just cut up a whole bunch of kerfing. This is going to be ready to go. The nice thing is I don't have to do no cutaway on this guitar, so it's going to be nice and easy. Something before we get to the sexy B-roll. In order to do this nice and easy, what I tend to do is I'm going to go ahead and bend up 6 pieces. As insurance, in case something has an issue, we have other backups. Plus, if I bend more than I need on the next guitar, I will have some already pre-bent. But what I tend to do is, to make this easier, I'm actually just going to tape these together really nice and easy. We're just going to wrap some tape around it, and we're just going to treat this as if it's just one side, essentially. So we're just going to make it a nice cohesive piece. And that was just a little trick I wanted to show you. It's kind of a no-brainer, but I know for me I have no brain, so that works out. But yeah, so we're gonna spray this with some water. I'm gonna mark the waist location, and we're gonna load it up in the aluminum foil and bend it up. But just a quick tip on how to do that. That's also how I do my binding, the same way. I bend up as many pieces as I can at once and just have them left up on the workbench so that I've got enough for like the next 4 or 5 guitars. If you're building one guitar at a time, then obviously, you know, your mileage may vary. Okay, we got the sides just out of the bender. I barely know her. The sides, the kerfing, I'm sorry. And you can see it just came out super good. Everything is like ready to go. The trick here versus doing binding or sides is that it is obviously quite a bit thicker. We were dealing with a 2.5 millimeter thick piece of wood. So you just got to be a little bit slower when you're bending the waist area because it can crack or basically like kink. But so what we're left with is I have 6 pieces of kerfing ready to go. There we go, let me do that first.
Yeah.
I very easily could have done like I think probably up to 8 or even 10 pieces of kerfing in one bend. So if you've got future projects that are going to be the same body size, think ahead and bend them. And once again, it's also just a nice insurance policy. If you break them, you've got other ones ready to go. So yeah, we're just going to pull this tape off real quick, and then we are going to get the sides loaded into the mold, and we'll be off to the races. Okay, so we're gonna load this thing into the mold so that we can begin gluing our kerfing on. With these laminated sides, it doesn't necessarily have to go in the mold for this step because, as you can see, it's already dang close to fitting almost perfectly inside there. But it's always good to practice on the side of caulking here. We want to make sure that we have enough wood exposed so that we can actually get clamps around here. That's kind of what I'm looking at right now. Just making sure there's enough surface area because we're going to pull it out of the mold to do the round over on this the bevel piece before we do the final level, the final radiusing of it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is we are gonna do the kerfing for the top of the guitar. We're gonna let that dry for 45 minutes, go get some lunch. It's Taco Tuesday. And then we're gonna and then we're gonna come back from lunch and we're gonna do the kerfing on the back. The cool thing is, if you are doing bevels like we have done here, is that this is the kerfing for the bevel. You don't have to do kerfing down there. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna come over here with my pencil, and we are just going to mark where the neck block starts, and then we are also gonna mark over here where the bevel starts, and then we're just gonna cut it. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so I cut that a little too long, which is fine. It'd rather be too long than too short, so I just need to trim it up just a little bit more. So I need to cut off about 2 millimeters here. When you're doing this, just to save you some wood, if you're gonna cut the kerfing, I recommend using a handsaw just because it's safer without damaging anything. Cut it a little bit too long, and then work your way down. You can either use the saw to trim it to its final length, or you can like use an edge sander or something like that. Yes. Yep. There we go. Should be a really nice tight fit. Yes. All right, I'm not gonna glue that in just yet. We're gonna go ahead and get the other side trimmed. And this side is gonna be how we're gonna do the rest of the guitar. That side obviously is a little different because it's got the arm bevel in it. So the way I do this is I'm gonna line up the waist area first. These are the clamps that I use. I just actually bought more of them. There's a bunch of brands. I got this at Lowe's. You're gonna pay like 40 cents a clamp for them. These are the neon yellow or green ones are from years ago, and I slowly have lost most of them, so I went out and bought the rest of these. But these are really good because they have a lot of clamping pressure. If you're gonna do the solid kerfing, just your traditional like clothesline pins are just not strong enough. So you need something a little bit beefier, and I highly recommend these. Plus, I find uses for these things all the time in the shop. So we'll put a link in the description below for an Amazon affiliate link on those. So we're just gonna clamp this in place right here at the waist, just to make sure that we get a nice tight fit. Now I can take my pencil and mark the intersection point for the neck block as well as for the heel block. Just like I've said 150 times in this whole build series, dry test, dry test, dry test. So what I'm gonna do is clamp it. You wanna make sure that you're getting good contact across the whole thing here, and we do. So what we can do is just clamp all this on. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? Nothing crazy here, but you can see how this is just going to be one final thing that's going to give me a lot of strength to this guitar sides. So what we'll do is just apply a little bit of wood glue. When I do this though, if you can come in close, Matt, over to here. When you do it, you want to glue up your kerfing so that there's a little bit of height. It's kind of proud. It's sitting proud of the side, because you want to have some room there so that it has room for sanding as we radius this. You don't want to have it even or even below it. You want it to be proud. It's going to be proud of it. You know, it really builds its self-esteem.
Who's a good kerfing?
Who's a good kerfing? Oh, for those of you who watched the was it the last episode Yes, the last episode it opens up with me like going and breaking the glue off of here, and Matt edited it so it made like a spittoon noise. My mom's like, "What is he, Christopher?" I literally saw my mom. What's today? Tuesday. I saw my mom on Sunday, and she said that she saw me using my teeth to open this up, and she said out loud, "Christopher," at the TV, and she said that at the exact same moment that I was mocking her, which is awesome. I nailed it. It was perfect. You can apply your glue here. I find that it's better to apply it to the Curfing. It just works a little bit easier. Just remember, it's finding that sweet spot between too much glue and not enough glue. You put too much glue on here and you got to squeeze it out, or you got to clean it all up. So finding the sweet spot. Because it's solid as opposed to the sliced Curfing that most people are using, you get a lot more squeeze out. So you got to be aware of that. With the sliced Curfing, the traditional style, a lot of the squeeze out just kind of goes in between the little cracks and crevices. But here it has no place to go but out.
What's the difference between the sliced Curfing and this Curfing, and is it thicker, and is that why they have to slice it?
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, interwebs, but using the word Curfing actually is that slicing technique, I believe. Taking a piece of wood and slicing it into little pieces without cutting all the way through it allows that piece of wood then to become flexible. So it just makes it so you don't have to do the bending process, from what I understand. And also because it's a 1/4 inch thick. Traditional Curfing is about a 1/4 inch thick, and it allows you to just be able to bend it easily. But I believe that Curfing is what we call this, but I think it's actually a woodworking term for making wood bendable by putting kerfs in it. We're gonna leave that in so that the internet can answer our question. Yeah. Of course, I could just Google it, but that's what you guys are for.
Yeah. YouTube hive mind.
Yeah.
In cooking, it's called Hasselback. And you stick like meats and cheeses in there.
All right, so in order to keep a bunch of glue from sliding all over the place, the way I do this is I make contact here at the heel, I make contact here at the neck, and then I push in, and it allows me to kind of like pull this away from the sides and then slide it into place and then press it up against here. Because otherwise, if you just slide it down, you're going to squeegee out all the glue. So I'm going to start here in the middle again. I always find that starting with the waist is best. We're going to go about 1 millimeter to 2 millimeters proud. These new clamps, fresh clamps, dude. They got like nice strength to them.
Got that new clamp smell.
Get that new clamp smell. Yeah, we're just going to work our way around here. So here it's not quite clamping hard enough. So what I do, I tend to use these guys as like a supplemental if I need to, just to give me a little bit more clamping pressure where I need it, just to have them kind of ready to go, especially if you're doing cutaways. If you have a cutaway guitar with solid Curfing, I definitely recommend you're going to need some sort of stronger clamps than just these. Just going to be prepared is what I'm getting at. Something that you can do, and I'm not doing it in this video just for time's sake, is you can actually go ahead and start to radius your sides. You can roughly radius your sides, which is actually the next step, before you glue the Curfing on. So you can kind of get them most of the way there, then glue your Curfing on, and then do the last of your sanding. It just saves you a little bit of time. I wanted to show you guys like the full process here. It's going to require a little bit more work on my end, but you know, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. Okay, we got the treble side done, and we're just going to do this last little spot of on the side where we do the bevel. And you can see, mind you, here, remember how when I did my bevel, I made sure that these points were the same thickness as my Curfing. So I did want to point that out. That was what I had mentioned, like the end pieces of your bevel backer need to get as thin as whatever your Curfing is. So if you're not doing laminate sides, your Curfing is going to be thicker. So make the end points of your bevel thicker. I think that's a good way of showing you what I talked about there. Some of this stuff is hard to like describe. I'm like, how do you how do you describe this? You know what's cool as a little anecdotal thing is that I've been building guitars for like 15 years now, and it wasn't until I brought in an apprentice years ago that I started to do teaching. But the real thing is like now that I'm doing the YouTuber thing, is you start to like have to like figure out why do you do things the way that you do, because I need to describe them, and it makes you question, oh yeah, I just do that because of whatever reason. Like I learned it from some article I read on the internet, or some guy taught me. But it certainly keeps me like honest. Bless you. It certainly like keeps me honest, and most of you guys have done a good job of kind of like threading that needle between like just kind of like pointing out when I'm making mistakes, all of the micrometer dial caliper situation, and just some of the stuff that I do here, and it's been cool. I think that doing this YouTube thing has actually made me a better builder, because I've learned a lot just from the comment section, which is cool. Okay, so that is all of the clamps for the top. So that's the treble side and the bass side fully glued on. We're gonna let that dry for like 40 minutes. Go get tacos because it's Taco Tuesday. And when we come back from lunch, we'll do the kerfing on the back side.
One eternity later.
All right, we're back from lunch. Taco place was closed, so we had to get a meat and three place, which was pretty good though. The glue is dry on the front kerfing, so all we gotta do is pull the clamps off real quick. That's pretty self-explanatory. Well, here we are 1 second later. All the clamps removed. We're gonna flip it and reverse it. Is your framing never wet yet? So same thing as the front here. I've cut this to length, and we're just gonna put some glue on it and clamp it on. Not a lot to it here. I would say that the main reason why you should consider using solid kerfing, you can make it yourself, right? You can just go out and buy yourself a piece of mahogany or Spanish cedar. You can make it out of whatever wood you want, really. So you can save money because you can make it yourself, have a whole stack of it. There is a little bit more time commitment to it because you have to bend it. But besides that, not only is it cheaper to make, but you actually are going to gain that rigidity on the side. So I would recommend that even if you're just thinking about it, to just give it a try on your next build. Because to me, it's definitely a step up from the pre-sliced kerfing, or the flexible kerfing, or the curved kerfing, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I just, once I started doing this, I kind of was just like, oh, okay, there's really no benefit to the stuff that I was buying. Plus, I mean, I switched over to the advanced shell technology A4 kerfing years ago, and it was costing me $40 per guitar for that kerfing. Really awesome kerfing, mind you. To me, worth the money. But this solid stuff is just so much easier to deal with. What I also really like is that it's pre-bent. I can just like literally have like 20 sets of them pre-bent and stacked up there, ready to go at any given point, and I'm just ready to pull it off the shelf and build the next guitar with it. So,
the stuff that's pre-curved is just not like worth the kerfing. Like
it just doesn't. So to me, the sliced kerfing that you buy, the traditional style kerfing, let's call it that, is not giving you any benefit. It literally serves one purpose. Its purpose is to add, I guess we haven't even talked about that. Kerfing's purpose on a guitar is to add gluing surface area around the perimeter. So when the top and the back goes onto the guitar, we have more surface area for that top to glue on. Because remember, we still have to cut our binding channel and all that stuff. So traditional kerfing only offers that single benefit of just making some extra gluing surface, right? But it offers nothing else besides that. Whereas solid kerfing, it does that as well as adds rigidity to the side. So it's making an acoustic improvement on the instrument. It costs you less money, and it makes the sonic improvement for a little bit of extra time commitment. Like, I mean, there's nothing but upside there, in my opinion. So I guess that's really kind of getting it to it. Look at Matt with the hard-hitting questions, really getting me to dive down. Hard-hitting journalism.
Hard-hitting journalism.
Matt Walters over here.
Stay tuned to 6. Are your kids safe?
So, that gives us our full clamp on of all the kerfing on this guitar, and the next step is to actually do the radiusing of it. I think we're going to go ahead and sign off on here because radiusing is a very involved process that kind of requires much more broad conversation and takes time and sweat, lots of sweat. It's one of my least favorite parts of the guitar building process, but it's such a necessity. And so I hope that maybe you guys got a little bit of an idea of how easy that is and how it's almost identical to using just standard traditional kerfing. And you will want to take on that for your guitars. So once again, you don't have to have the laminate sides to do that. You can do it with even just traditional thickness sides. And so we appreciate you watching this episode of 3,000-Year-Old Guitar Build. Next episode is going to be exactly that, the radiusing. And we'll see you in the next one, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. And we appreciate you who have bought t-shirts. Thanks, guys.